Okay, so I'm just gonna start right in. We're gonna jump right in, and
Sure.
I want you to take me back to the moment you found out you were pregnant the first time. Was it planned? And what was
Oh
that
my
moment like when you found out? You were just like, oh, okay.
Okay, so this is a story. Now, first
Okay.
of all, you know I'm a talker. So like be like, cut, listen. I'm a talker, okay? So I just want to let you know. All right. So when I first, this was December of 2013 when I found out that I was pregnant with my first son.
Mhm.
So before I found out I was pregnant with my first son, I actually had many conversations with doctors, and they told me that I had a 10% chance of even carrying a baby. Like they were like, ma'am, this is not your ministry. This is not happening for you.
Oh, wow.
Due to my past. And then it was like my uterus is like tilted, and it was just like a whole bang of like shabams of like I had PCOS. It was just like, no, like
Okay.
down. So that September, I went to a women's retreat, a Christian women's retreat, and I wrote down like in my book of like what I wanted, what was our desires. My desire was to be a mom. I just wanted to be a mother. Like I was married. I was like, let's get this done. So at the Christian retreat, it's called the Dragonfly Retreat. All the women was like, put their hands on my belly, and they was like, it's going to happen. They like prayed over my stomach, and I just was like, yay, like this is going to happen. That was September. So then nothing happened. So I was like, oh, okay, this is whack. This isn't going down. And one day in December, in the beginning of December, I started to feel like really sick, like really bad. I was like, I don't know if this is the flu, like what's happening? And literally we went right to the doctor, and my doctor was like, well, let's take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, why? Like you've already told me this information. Yeah. I was exactly 2 weeks pregnant. 2 weeks. Like he didn't even want to like give me any hopes of like a due date or anything, because I was so early on. But I felt my son, like the symptoms and everything was like immediate.
Okay.
So it was not planned because I didn't think it could happen. And I was just like, I'm just gonna like, I'm a teacher, I'm a godmommy. That's just my life. It'll be fine. But here he come, and he came into the world like a rolling storm. So that was then, and I found out December 15th, 2013, and he came August 21st.
Okay.
That was like insane. So yeah, that was the first one.
Okay. Okay, so you had this bowl of baked beans because you couldn't eat anything.
I was just sick as a dog. And
I feel like I remember part of it, and I feel like everybody was just like super concerned because you weren't eating, and like
that was it.
Like couldn't eat it. You were just like miserable during lunchtime. I just remember that.
It was horrible. I was like drinking like ice water. Like it was terrible. But he was growing, and the doctors was like, well, we don't have any concern. He's taking what he needs. And I'm like, how? I literally am not eating at all. But he came out full term and big and healthy. And I was like, okay, well, there we go.
So then the day you gave birth, then like what was your labor like?
Labor. So I was in labor for 15 hours. Labor started at like 5:00 in the morning. And my husband, I didn't know if it was labor or not. I thought I was just, I'm so much drama. So I was like, maybe I'm just being dramatic. But I was like, something is hurting down here, but I don't want to wake him up because he has to go to work. And, I'm off in the summertime because, being a teacher, it was August. So I was like, I don't think so. So I didn't want to wake him up. So when he did wake up at 6:30 to go to work, I was like, hey, I've been kind of hurting for the last hour and a half. I don't know if we should he was like, what? And I was like, hold on, it's back. And like he timed it, and I was like 3 minutes apart. It was I didn't know drama, okay? So we called the doctor. The doctor was like, get here now. So we went to GBMC, and we got there at around 8:00 in the morning, and SJ was born at 7. He was born at like 7:30 something. Okay. So literally it was 15 hours of labor, and I just was Okay, so labor story really quickly. Oh my gosh. So he was a natural baby because, I didn't know that I wanted, that I could have children. So I wanted to experience everything. I was like, I'm doing this. So we get there and the doctor's like, you can take meds, you can get an epidural. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to prove anything to nobody. And I was like, I'm doing this. My big thing was women in Africa do this every day. I can do this too. When I tell you the amount of pain that I was in was obscene, to the point where at at 4:00, so 3 hours before he was born, I told my mom. It was my mom, my husband, and my mother-in-law was in the room. Okay. And I told all of them, I was like, listen, I'm dying. So I want to just let you know that I'm getting ready to die. I'm not doing this anymore. So I was like, I'm gonna hold my breath till I die. Like, this is what it is. Like, this pain is obscene. Like, I'm not doing this no more. So I literally was like, I was like, I'm gonna hold my breath. Like, I can't take this. Like, this has to end some kind of way. So that basically, my husband, he was like, no, he's fussing and everything like that. And he puts his mouth on my mouth and he just every time I would hold my breath, he would breathing real heavy. And he was like, you have to do this. Stop playing. And then the doctor was like, so do you want an epidural now? Like, you want to keep doing this Shiro thing? And I was like, yes, just give it to me. Now, here's the problem. It's 5:00. So it was too late, right? So even though they put the needle in, one side of my vagina was numb. The other side was just like, hey, I'm here. Yeah. And literally felt everything. I was like, this is not, why did I even waste my time doing this needle? If I feel it was the worst. It was just the worst. But it was completely my fault. So drama.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That was that.
After all that, you still ended up giving birth naturally. Okay.
Yeah. Giving after all of it, because I was like, okay, just give me the epidural. Like, I'm going to rest and everything's gonna be fine. And she's like, don't worry. Once you get the epidural, you're not going to feel anything. You'll just be able to see it on the charts when you're having a contraction. Lies, 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 Lord, lies. Lies.
Oh my gosh.
I should have did this when I first came in, because if I was going to do it, I might as well did it the right way.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So then, what was the first postpartum period like? Like, what kind of support did you have? Like, how was that?
So I had SJ on a Thursday, and we went home that Saturday, and my husband took off for work for 2 weeks. So he was off for 2 weeks with me the first 2 weeks. So that was great. My mom came over. It was either that day or the very next day. And like, she made like a whole Thanksgiving meal. Mm-hmm. So like, we had food. My sorority sisters came over and they like bought me food and things of that nature. And they were like, come by. And it was actually fine because I didn't have any, like, I felt like I was supported by everyone. And then with him with the first 2 weeks, and because he worked so much, so him just being home with like the both of us was great. And because of the pregnancy, going so fine, like the delivery basically went through natural, I was fine when I came home. Like, I remember mopping the floor like 4 days after I came home, right? So I was like ended. I was like, okay, I could do this. Like, let's go. So that was really postpartum for me. It was kind of like just hanging in there until like week 3, and my son was like, sleep? What's that? And he just basically was like, I'm not sleeping. And that's when all of the like anger and the sadness, I just was like, why won't you go to sleep? What is wrong with you? My baby I got a defect. I got to take him back. There's something wrong, baby. So he wasn't a sleeper. He was not a sleeper. I was so tired, and I was off of work for the first 9 weeks. So when week 10 came and I had to go back to work, I was literally a zombie. I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to be up with him all night long because he's breastfed. So it's not like I could give him to my husband. So I just was like, I'm just up and working on 2 hours of sleep, period. And I was just like, I'm gonna make it work until I pass out on this floor somewhere.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. All right. So then, can you talk a bit about your transition back to work? Like, aside from being a zombie, like what kind of preparations did you put in place to make that transition back? And like, how did you feel about it? Like, what was that like?
So that was a sad period for me because I did not want to leave my baby. I was like, first of all, it was a miracle that I even had him. So I was like, I don't want to leave him. And like, I used to talk, so background, it's always been my mom and my sisters. Me, my mom, and my sister, we call each other like a triangle. Like, that's just the three of us. So I used to complain all the time to my mom and my sister, still to this day. And I'm just like, I don't want to leave my baby. Like, how am I going to do this? Like, I'm not going to school. I don't want to teach somebody else's kids. I want to stay with my kids. Forget these kids. That's just kind of like the feeling I had. Like, I don't want to see these kids, even though I loved my babies. I was like, I didn't start the year off with them. I didn't even know them. So it was November, and I just was kind of like, So my sister, who was going to college at the time, decided to change her schedule around, and she watched my son until June. So what successfully like allowed me to go to work and have like peace of mind was the fact that when I left out the door, I knew that like the best person in the world that could have him besides my mom was there. So that gave me like peace of mind. So, so it wasn't as bad as it could. If I would have had to put him into like a daycare, I don't know if I would have still been with Baltimore City Public Schools, because I really was like, I cannot. But she stayed with him until June. Then I was off those 2 months, July and August. And then I found this wonderful woman who had him up into 3. And she actually has my other son now. So I found like a neighborhood, like the neighborhood grandma that holds all the kids. I found like that. And that made it like a little better. So that was my preparation. It was a lot of figuring out who was going to have him. How does this work? Like, he's breastfed, you know, have I pumped enough bottles? Do I introduce formula now? Because when do I pump? Because I'm at work. So it just was kind of like a whole mental thing. Like, you know, how do we prepare for this?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. It's a lot. It's a lot to juggle and manage.
Absolutely.
Okay. So talk about your second pregnancy and birth. What was that experience like? Well, first of all, like, you're teaching for a while, you're minding your business, and then poof, you're pregnant again. So like, what was that moment like? What was that like?
Okay. That was a hot mess. Okay, so that's the pregnancy that led to my tiny terror. That's what I call him. Okay, he is just like he's just the most. That pregnancy was a complete shock. When I tell you I bought 7 pregnancy tests because I was like, this is not true. There's no way this is true. Like, what is happening right now? Yeah. What happened was I went out for my birthday. So my birthday is February the 12th.
Okay.
Went out for my birthday with my husband. Went to go see an Erykah Badu concert. You know, had a nice weekend with my husband. And at the end of February, I started to feel like death warmed over. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this feeling. Like, what's happening here? So before even going to the doctors, I like just went straight to CVS and I purchased one of every kind of test. I'm talking about the one that said pregnant, the one that had the 2 lines, the one that had the plus sign, the one that had the dots. I wanted each one. I even went to the dollar store and got the dollar store one. I spent like $50 on pregnancy tests. And I peed on all of them, and they just like in a row. They was like, pregnant. And I just laid on my counter. And I just was like, let me just wait till he comes home because this is a mess. No clue, okay? No clue. This was 5 years later. Like, we were not banking on this happening, and it definitely did. And it's just like, wow. Not just me anymore.
What was his birth story like?
He is my premature child.
Okay.
So he's my preemie, my baby. He's like I said, my tiny terror, because the only thing that's little about him is his size. Besides that, he's like a giant in every way. his pregnancy was very different than my son's. I was the hungriest person on earth. Like, I was like, I want to eat everything at all times. Like, I was showing with him at like 5 or 6 weeks, I feel like. Like, it was insane. So my belly came super fast. With my first son, I really didn't have a belly because I lost so much weight. But with this baby, I couldn't wear pants after like 3 months. I was wearing nothing but dresses because nothing fit over my stomach.
That's what I say. Yeah.
The second pregnancy was real. Like, it was insane. And we thought that he was a girl because it was so opposite from my first. I was like, oh, this, like, I'm about to have my little girl because that's what this is. So his pregnancy, so we found out about him at the end of February. Everything was great. But in the summertime, I developed high blood pressure with him. And I thought that was because I was just hungry. Like, and that's when Popeye's chicken sandwiches came out. So that was my thing. Like, I would drive to like a Popeye's and get a chicken sandwich at any time. Like, that was my thing. So I thought that, with the food I was eating, because before that I was a vegetarian. So I was like, I'm eating chicken now. Like, I'm eating bacon. Like, that's why I have high blood pressure. So my doctor was like, cut it out. I was like, I can't. That's all I crave. It's like food.
That's all I want.
I can smell it in my sleep. I just want chicken. It's insane. So in July, I started having high blood pressure readings. And around August is when my doctor was like, listen, we're going to have to put you on high blood pressure medicine because like this is getting out of control. I was like, okay. And she started to, and then my body started to retain like so much fluid, right? I just was like, oh my God, it's like literally you could not see my ankles. Like, I could press my finger on my ankles and like see dents in my, like, it was insane.
Wow.
This is craziness. Like, I never knew any of this was going on. So August comes. Is this what, I'm just rambling. Tell me if this is like.
No, this is perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So August comes and I wake up and basically I'm like in a pool of like, I thought it was like urine. I was like, I peed on myself. So I was like, what is going on here? So I called my doctor. My doctor was like, is anything still coming out? I was like, no. She was like, well, then chances are you just peed on yourself. Like, get yourself together and wear a panty liner. I was like, okay. So I was good with it. So I went back to school in September and started to prepare. He was due November 5th.
Okay.
So October comes. And then in September, my blood pressure readings started getting higher and higher and higher, even though I was on medication. So that was weird. I had tried my best to cut back on like food and like change my diet and things like that, and it didn't work. But I was like, okay, something's going on. And then they started to require me to come in every Tuesday and Thursday to get like this monitoring done. And I was doing it and everything came out fine with the monitoring. Well, October the 10th, so he was about 36 weeks.
Okay.
October the 10th, I went in to get my 36-week ultrasound, and I brought my son. So I brought my first son. My husband was there. We're like, we're going to see your brother. Yay. And she puts the wand across my stomach and literally you saw nothing. Oh. I'm talking about, it looked like static from an old TV. Okay. She was like, what's going on here? So she was like doing all this movement. Like, she pushed my belly around. Wow. She finally found the baby. She measured the baby. She was like, oh my God, like he's measuring so small. Yeah. And like, okay, we need to contact, like, that was the nurse that did that, the technician. So she's like, we need to contact your doctor. So my doctor comes in and she's like, we don't know what's happening. Like, you've been being monitored every Tuesday and Thursday, da, da, da. So come to find out, in August, when I woke up in that puddle of what I thought was urine, my water basically broke.
Oh my God.
Yep. So at that time, so he would have been 28 weeks. At that time, not only did my placenta stop growing, also the amount of fluid that was around him shrunk like expeditiously. Yeah. So the reason why they couldn't see him is because he was literally like smashed up on like the bed.
Like shrink wrapped, like.
Yeah, like he was like in there, like, oh, I'm still chilling, but I can't breathe. Like this, what's happening here? So she was like, okay, you need to go to the doctor's, like you need to go to the hospital immediately. Like, we're having a C-section now. And I was like, what? It's October. Like, this baby's not due to November. Like, I have no idea what's going on. They scheduled me for emergency C-section. They was going to induce my labor. I got there at like 11 o'clock at night on the 10th. They started to induce my labor. And immediately when they did the first contraction, his heartbeat dropped. So they was like, okay, we can't do induces. So we just have to take him out. He was born at like 4 o'clock. So I literally had no labor with him because I got there expecting to have 2 or 3 days of being induced, and he couldn't handle it because he was so small.
Yeah.
So when he came out, they were like, oh my gosh, like your placenta is the size of somebody's placenta that would have been 28 weeks. He was only 3 pounds. So it was crazy. So at 36 weeks, the time I carried him, he's only 3 pounds, but he had no lung issues. He was the loudest little teeny thing of all time. He had no wires, no tubes, no anything. He was in the NICU because he couldn't regulate his sugar at the time. Okay. So I was the NICU mom for about 14 days. So about actually 2 weeks exactly. We came out on October the 25th. And other than that, like, he just was a small baby. So that was his whole story. So the high blood pressure and everything was leading up to the idea. What I thought was food was actually me. After I had him and he was in the NICU, they found out before they had to test my urine before I went home. They found out that I had preeclampsia. So I had to go through a magnesium drip for 24 hours. Like, it was so much drama surrounding his birth. But when I tell you, literally, this little boy is just like, yeah, I'm small, but I'm here. Like, right now, he's 15 months. And at 15 months, he's only 20 pounds. So he's really supposed to be like 24. So he's still small for his age. Like, this thing is like talking my head off and like slapping up and climbing on things. And I'm like, boy, you've been here before because you was a hot mess. So that's my little tiny Tara. So his story is so different than my first.
Yeah.
Insane.
So, okay. So then just to make sure that I understand, they didn't diagnose you prior to having him with preeclampsia. That was something, so that's something that they didn't catch.
They didn't catch. They literally took, well, actually, let me be clear let me make sure I'm saying it right. When I went in to be induced, they asked for urine. When the urine, and then he came like hours later, like that. The urine that they was like, oh yeah, let's check the urine before all hell broke loose with her. Oh snap! It says that it's preeclampsia. Like, it's some stuff up in her urine. Oh, let's check it again. Oh, it's big time. Let's put her on a magnesium drip. Literally, that's how it went. It was like, y'all, I was almost out the door. When I tell you, it was my day of leaving. Yeah. It was that Wednesday, and he was going to stay, but I was like, okay, I'm going home to my baby. I was packing my stuff up, and the doctor came in like, hold up, wait a minute, because if you leave, you can have you have to stay for another 24 hours in a different room with a magnesium drip, and you have to pee every hour to pee this magnesium out, because you can have a seizure, you can have this, you can have that, all of these things with preeclampsia that was not on my radar because no one brought this up to me, but I should have been more perceptive when it came to like the high blood pressure and things like that, because as soon as he came out, my blood pressure dropped, and I haven't had since then. So everything was like, warning, something's happening inside your body. And I was just like, give me the chicken. Like, I didn't think it was like nothing.
Chicken.
Oh, right. So it was insane. But that pregnancy was all surrounded by God. Let me just tell you, because that boy was here.
So then, can you walk me through the moment when you had to leave your son in the NICU? Like, what were you feeling in that moment?
That was horrible. That was hands down one of the worst experiences like that I ever felt. I was, so I gave birth at Greater Baltimore Medical Center. and they had like a baby NICU, like a little teeny, because it was a new hospital. So it was like for the babies that just had like little teeny problems. And not that he had a large problem, but he was so small and his sugar level was so low. They were like, we can't actually handle this. So they were like, let's send him to Mercy, which is our partner. We're gonna send him to Mercy. And then I promise you, like at Mercy, you can talk to him every day. You have like video cameras to see him, all this other kind of stuff. And the idea that I was still in the hospital and he was getting discharged to another hospital, it was the worst. Okay, the worst.
Yeah.
So he so that was like really painful. Like that was a lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of screaming, a lot of trying to just figure out like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
My husband was basically split in half because he was split in thirds. He had to take care of our oldest son, which was 5 at the time. He had to make sure I was okay in the hospital. And then our other child was in a whole separate place in the NICU. So it's just like, what is going on here? So so he got transferred that Monday. I was stuck into that Wednesday because of the preeclampsia situation. So that was bad. But when I got out that Thursday, now remind you, I had a C-section. And the doctors told me like the best thing to heal from the C-section is rest. But I was like, I can't rest. Like my son is in a whole different hospital that's ways away. And the way Mercy is set up is you have to literally walk over this huge bridge and then go like through the hospital to make it to like the NICU. It just was like a far walk completely from Navy Park. So every day with this fresh C-section sore, with this bind around my stomach, I'm like trucking it because I was not going to let one day go by that I didn't see him. Like I was like, while SJ is in school, because he was going to George Washington at that time, I was in a pre-K. I was like, while he's in pre-K, I'm spending all my time with 7. And then when he get out, like, so that was my day. Wake up, drop SJ off at school, go see 7 in the hospital until 2:30, go get SJ, do the whole mom thing in the evening, go back and do it again. So basically for my C-section, I had no rest and recovery time.
Yeah.
So kind of like a constant, like going.
Yeah.
And that was really hard on me. That when I think about it, I'm grateful that I was able to do it, but I feel like I pushed myself to a level because it was at one point in time where like my legs and everything was shaking from exhaustion.
Wow.
Because I literally had like this major surgery and I had like this magnesium drip and I was on Oxycontin because of the pain and like everything that I had been through. But I was like, no, like there's not gonna be one day that goes by that 7's not gonna see my face. So I'm going 7 days a week. I'm standing up there for hours and hours and hours. So I was in like the NICU changing my C-section bandages because like, you know, I was just like, I'm just gonna get this done. So leaving him every night was like so insane to me and like so unnatural because I just wasn't used to that. So I used to call the nurse, they are angels. NICU nurses are angels because I literally called his nurse like 5 times a night. I would be like, what's he doing now? And how's his numbers now? Because he used to get his finger and his thumb pricked to see if his sugar level was high enough. Because if he had 5 days of having a sugar level above 60, then he could come home. So I used to call all the time, like, what's his level? What's his level? Like they would know it's me because I would call so often. So it was very traumatizing. I will say that. Like when I think about it to this day, like the first thing I feel like is like a sunken feeling like, oh my gosh, I was so tired. But you got to do what you have to do, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice do you have for parents who are experiencing that, where they have to leave their preemies in the NICU? What advice do you have for families who are going through that right now?
See, here's the thing. Now with COVID, I don't know what that would be like. I can't imagine if I would have had to go through that with having a I can only imagine like the limited time that they might have to go up there, or if they can even visit. I don't know how, the new thing is with them. But my advice for the moms and the dads that, will have to leave their baby in a NICU is just to pray about it, to know that it's temporary. It's temporary, and it might seem like the saddest days ever to leave him, or leave the child, the girl or boy, but your baby is in like the best hands. Those people are trained to be there, and you're going to look up and say, that was a memory, and it's over now. Yeah.
Can we talk about breastfeeding really quick?
Of course.
What's breastfeeding like for you in both situations?
So completely opposites. So my first child breastfed until a month before he turned 3.
Okay.
I literally had to go on vacation. I went to Jamaica for 5 days in order to get him to that. Like, that was like, I have to leave. Like, I was like, we have to get out of here. There's no way he's ever going to stop breastfeeding. And he breastfed until almost 3, like literally to the day. And that was like a connection for me, because breastfeeding has always been so like spiritually tied. And like, I love the idea of like, when he wasn't feeling well, like my breast milk increasing, and just seeing like his body's growing because of the milk that I'm giving him, and the things that I'm eating is like reflecting like in him and things like that. So breastfeeding has always been like super special. Now with my tiny Tara, he still breastfeeds at 15 months.
Okay.
But he's not really, he's like, he'll breastfeed to go to sleep.
Okay.
And other than that, he's not like a big breastfeeder unless he falls. If he hurts himself, he's like, I need mommy and I need to nurse like right now. But if he hasn't fell, like if he's just chilling all day long, he doesn't even look nowhere close to my breast. Like, that's just not his thing. Where my first son was like, oh no, we're breastfeeding like multiple times a day for years. This one, I can see he's going to be a little easier to like get off the boob at nighttime, as long as he has like his coconut milk bottle. He's like, I'm good, as long as you're beside me. He does still do the grab your breast and hold it thing.
Yeah,
so but besides that, he's like completely different. But I love the idea of breastfeeding. It's hard. It hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
But the idea that you make the milk to like help them, and all the antibodies that's in your body and things like that go into them. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Breastfeeding was a journey.
Yeah.
I think I stopped like maybe when he like 2 months before he turned 2.
Awesome.
So, but I did not like it. Like,
you didn't like it at all. You was like, nope.
I did not like it. But like, I did it for as long as I could stand, and then I was like, I can't take this anymore.
I love it. He was like, it's over.
Yeah.
Was it hard for him to get off? Because my son literally, it's like he had a funeral. Like when SJ was going, when I came back home, he was trying to nurse again. He cried for days straight. I was like, you are in mourning. Like, what is happening here? It was not a good experience. Like getting him to finally be off. He was like, no, this is not happening.
Wow. No, it wasn't that hard. I just kind of like told him, we're not nursing tonight. Here's a cup of milk from a cow. Like,
wow. And he was like, okay.
I mean, he cried a little bit, but it, after a while he was just like, okay, fine.
I love it. Not mine.
Okay. So let's talk about pandemic parenting.
Oh my gosh.
How's it going? How's your family coping? And how are you coping with kind of like being a teacher and balancing it all? Like, how are you guys doing?
Listen, it is drama and hard. It is so hard. So SJ's in kindergarten this year, and he's in my class. So imagine that, right? So I am trying to teach 20 kids online and then teach him, because his desk is right beside my desk. So I'm still like, focus, pay attention. Oh, wait a minute, let's go take your break. And it's just like, oh my goodness, I feel like the teaching and the parenting part, I am literally split in so many ways, to the point where Saturdays and Sundays, there's no planning, there's no school talk. I don't care if you have homework. I don't care if somebody sends me a meeting. It's, you want to be on the computer? Nope. All technology is shut down. It's just not. It's
email. What's email?
Yeah, email. Like, no, I'm deleting my Outlook app every Friday, and I'll put it back on Monday morning. It's insane. Like, pandemic parenting is just like hard, and it's, you know what? It's so guilt ridden too, because I'm like, all my baby has is like, okay, his brother is 1. And although they play and they're like the best of friends, SJ's 6. So like he wants to do like active things, and 7 is like crawling on the floor.
Yeah.
So I feel so guilty at times, because I'm like, maybe I should go take him to a walk, or take him on a walk. Oh, maybe we should go to a park. Oh wait, that playground might not be safe, because what if it's germs on that playground? Okay, we can't go to a playground. Okay, let me give him this tablet. Oh wait, can't have him on the tablet too long, because what they say about screen time. But hold on, we're not doing nothing anyway. So, you know, go ahead and watch this extra movie if you want. So then it's kind of like, am I buying him too many toys to substitute him, you know, not being around friends? Am I letting him watch TV too much? Should he have a bedtime? Why? We're not going anywhere. It's not like he has to get up in the morning. His Zoom session doesn't start at 10. So it's just kind of like, we are over here freestyling life. Like, I feel like I'm just winging it. This thing with pandemic, I'm just over here like, just don't kill yourself. That's kind of like, I'm winging it, and I'm just hoping that it's going to end soon and he'll be able to be around, you know, people safely and things like that. But until then, he's on his hoverboard, rolling around the house, running everything over, and I'm over here trying to teach at the same time and wheel him in. So it's difficult.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting. Thank you for touching on the guilt piece of it, because I feel that every second of every day. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not like teaching or like doing half the things that you're doing, but I'm just like at a certain point, it's like, I'm with my kid 24/7. I don't get a break.
Exactly.
Like, I like at the end of the day, I literally put him to bed, and I just like sit and I zone out.
Yes.
Then I feel bad, because I'm like, oh man, like Maury got like 2 hours of screen time today, and like, is that gonna have ADHD now? Like, you know, just like all these
all the things that you read about.
Yes.
Like, I feel like none of it is valid. None of it applies during a pandemic for us.
All right. A lot of people said that like 2020 was the year that caused them to like pivot and change their approach to how they move and operate in this world. So did you experience anything like that? And if so, like what changes are you looking most forward to this year in 2021? You know what? 2020, I did experience that. It actually caused me to move slower. I'm used to being so, let's go, like 15 alarms on my phone. 7 has to take a bath at this particular time. Actually, has to take a bath at this particular time. We have to be laid down by this time. Like, I was so stuck on like being the person who needed to have control of everything. Yeah.
And now kind of with this pandemic, it's just kind of like, if it happens, it happens. And I realized that if SJ goes a night without a bath, like he's not going to wake up a pile of salt. Like he'll be fine. He's fine. Like he can take a bath in the morning, or we can skip a day. Okay, we're fine. Yeah. So that's just kind of like, that's what I'm taking into 2021. It's kind of like, you're not always in control. You can slow down. Everything isn't scheduled. Like some things you just wing it and just be free about it. And I'm like that with I see this is dead though. I'm like that with like my personal life and things like that, but I'm not that way as far as mommyhood is concerned or professionally. And I put that into my mommyhood now, because with them, I always felt like in order to be a good mom, you need to make sure that they are eating their vegetables and going to bed at this time and taking a bath at this time and, like, you know, no screen time, and make sure that. And now I'm just kind of like, they are fine. Then last night he had boxed macaroni and cheese for dinner. And I was just like, you know what? You liked it and you ate and you were okay. And that's what he did. So I'm just kind of like just easy breezing it through life right now, because it's so much drama out there in the world. In this household, in this tiny little box of mine, I just want it to be as carefree as possible. So everything isn't neat. Everything isn't as scheduled and planned, but it's just kind of like, it's us and everybody's alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Like, thank you so much. Because I just feel like a lot of times we don't give ourselves like that kind of permission to like slow down or let things not be perfect. Like my son had saltine crackers for dinner.
There we go.
And like, I mean, he had like other things, but like that was like part of his dinner. That was his starch. And that was what he wanted. And he's fine, you know, like he's growing fine, you know. And
okay. He's okay.
Yeah, he's fine. So can you talk to me about the significance of raising Black boys in the United States today? Like what goes through your mind, like as you parent your boys? How do you strive to set them up for success? Like, what are you thinking, especially given like the kind of climate we're in right now? Like, what goes through your mind when you think about that?
It is the scariest thing in the world. I'm petrified, to be honest with you, because my children, so my husband is 6'4", 280 pounds. He's a big guy.
Okay.
And my son is already, my oldest, is way taller than he's supposed to be at this age. And this little one is half the size of my son, and he's just one. So I'm bound to have like these huge statuesque like boys, you know?
Yeah.
And it scares me with the climate and the culture that we're in, because I know that when people see them, or I just don't want them to be a threat as a Black boy. I want them to radiate the shine that they have. I want them to radiate the light and the joy. My oldest son is the happiest child on earth. Like, he feels all the feels. He is super excited about life. He's like, he gets excited. Like if a pizza man comes, he's like, pizza! Like he's singing to the pizza man. Like he's just like the happiest person ever. And I just pray that he's always going to be seen for like that shine that he has that's inside of him. So it kind of scares me, because I know that in a few years, I'm going to have hard conversations with them. Like, hey, you know, like, this is what happens if you are pulled over by the police, or this is what happens if you're in a certain environment and someone might feel threatened by your size or threatened by your skin color, or, you know, or many, many things. So, so right now at this moment, I'm still living in my rose-colored glasses bubble. I haven't kind of like popped it yet, because I'm like, you know, he's 6, he's 1, I have some time. But in the back of my head, I see things that happen on television and all of like the killings of unarmed Black men and things like that. And I'm like, that legit like could have been my son, because it just could have had like the circumstances. Who would know? It could be my husband. Like when my husband walks through the door every night, like him turning the key is my absolute favorite sound in the world, because I know that he's sick. And it's like going to be I know it's not going to be so long where I feel that way about my boys. And I can't say, well, we're picking up and we're moving out of Baltimore, because things happen everywhere, you know?
Sure, absolutely.
So I'm just like on a mission to just teach them to be respectful, mannerable, stand up for what they believe in, to be strong, but not overbearing, to be educated, but not pushy, to be just amazing men. Because that's just kind of like, I want them just to be an amazing husband and father and worker, and just have like that kind of thing. So it's scary, but I'm kind of like, right now I don't put too much into it, which I know I probably should start thinking about it, because I just want to enjoy like their little bit of time right now.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of time left of this.
Yeah, I get that. No, I get that. Seriously. So, what about your relationship? So, how are you able to be present as a mother and in your relationship? And like, what advice do you have for people who are just like navigating their own emotions, as well as like being present for their significant other and their kids and their job? Like, relationship thing, like what what are we doing? Like,
what are we doing? What are we doing? Let me tell you, it's a mess. So with my first, I was completely just him. I was like, even though I've been married to you, I've been with my husband for 14 years now. Okay. So even though we were together like 9 years before my son came, I was like, who are you? I'm all about me and my baby. Like, you sleep downstairs if you want to. So that was horrible. That was like not the best thing in the world. So I kind of like did like a lot of pushing him aside, and it did not do well for our relationship. But he's a very like upfront and like honest person to like a fault sometimes. So he kind of told me like, I'm feeling neglected. He didn't say it in that way because he's that man that's not going to communicate that well. So he's just kind of like, I don't get no time. So it's kind of like that kind of situation. So I read it as he was feeling a little bit more neglected. He didn't feel like he was a part of it, because motherhood swallows you up. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's like, there's no lunch breaks. There's no clocking out. I can't even use the bathroom without them knocking on the door. Like, mommy, look at this. What? Like, it's insane. And my husband can come home and he can go upstairs and use the bathroom for 45 minutes and then take a shower for an hour. Yes. And I'm like, you've been gone for 10 hours and now you've been upstairs for another 2. We haven't seen you for 12 hours straight. My kids don't say nothing. Let me go upstairs for 10 minutes. They're like, mommy, you alive? You okay? What are you doing? So kids kind of swallow you up. So my advice, which is probably not even good advice because I really need advice myself, is to kind of like try the best you can.
Yeah.
With this one, with my smallest, I did things different. I kind of like had my husband involved in all of it. I always say, go get your child. I did the whole your child situation. Don't pull that. Stop it. So I did, stop it. So I did the whole your child, go do this. Or, go. I kind of like gave him tasks to be as involved as possible with my youngest child. And then when it came time for them going to sleep, I always managed to like stay up for like an hour or 2 later, which is a killer. Okay, it's like when they close their eyes, I want to close my eyes too. But I know that it's important to like give him as much time as possible, even if it's watching him edit his photography or talking to him about something that happened crazy at work, or like watching TikTok videos, sending it back and forth with him. Even if it's as small as that, I try to stay up for additional hour just to give him a little bit of like my time. No, us, not my time, but time for us to be together. Yeah. Okay. But it's hard. Oh my gosh. It's like, how do you do this? And it
really is. It's so hard. I think, look, the first year, I was just like, I don't know, guys. Like, I don't know. But yeah.
That's true.
We're finally like in a groove now.
See, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll try my best. It's rough.
Yeah, it's hard. It is. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was the importance of taking care of oneself and one's health.
Yeah.
And so like just from being around you and like working with you, I know that you've experienced like some health challenges just like in your own life. And so like, can you talk to me about like how you worked through those, or like how you're working through those, and how you take care of yourself?
I'm trying to still figure that out. I have started, and this was just fairly recently, I started to I would send the children upstairs. Their father would come home, take a shower, get out the bathtub, start editing. He would take the boys upstairs. And at like 9:00, I would stay downstairs, and I've started to like meditate for 15 to 20 minutes, just a YouTube video on meditation. I would do that. I started to like do exercise. Like I love like soca aerobics, so I would spend a little bit of time doing that. It might be as simple as like just drinking a glass of wine, but I have dedicated spending at least 20 minutes at the very least to myself every day. And it happens to be at night, but it kind of lets me become Ariel and not stay in mommy or Miss Watson. Like I try to get Ariel time, so that I do that for like 20 minutes strong, and then or a little longer depending on what I'm doing at that time. But I think it's super important to always like say like, you have the babies, like they're fed, they're washed, everything's great, let them play, but they need to play near you, because I want to be downstairs on a completely different floor, the completely different level, and I want to tune everyone out, act like y'all don't even exist, and focus on me for a second. And that's kind of like how I do that daily.
Awesome. That's awesome. This isn't on my list of questions, but you did mention that you experienced like some of the symptoms of like PCOS.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering if you felt comfortable kind of like sharing like your journey through kind of like working through that, because I know it's a challenge for a lot of women. And just wondering if you had any like tips or advice for kind of like navigating that.
So I started to experience that in my 20s. I started that I became familiar with it because my menstrual cycle became super irregular. Like I'm talking about 3 times a year type of irregular.
Wow.
So I was just like, what's happening here? And I started to grow like facial hair. Like, let me tell you, if you leave me in a cabin alone, in 3 weeks, I will have a full-grown beard and mustache. It can go down. I'm just trying to tell you, like, this is what happens. So I started to, my baby's like crying in the background, I'm sorry. So I started to, so I went to the doctor because I was just like, something's wrong here, look at this. And something's happening down here, we need to figure this out. So that's when I was basically diagnosed. They like ran some testing and things like that. And I was told to change my diet. So I became, I started to not become a strict vegetarian, but I cut out like all meat except for chicken. And then after a while, I cut out chicken too, because my husband's a vegetarian. So I jumped on his board, and I controlled my eating habits. This is pre-baby. I controlled like my exercise. I walked every day, and I just read like a lot of books. I read up on a lot of things to try to like regulate my menstrual cycle naturally. And the goal has always been to have children, but that's the biggest thing they tell you with that. They're like, it's an infertility thing. Like, there's a chances are that, that you won't have a baby. I'm just like, not wanting to have a child so bad. I knew that I wanted to be a mom my entire life. So I basically did a lot of research and a lot of like figuring out what can I do without taking medication. I'm really big on not taking meds. So I wanted to see if there was anything I can do to like
Yeah.
help. Yeah. So here he's back. Say hi. So yeah, that's basically and I kept up with my yearly doctor visits, and that's just kind of like how I navigated through it. So the only advice I have for that kind of thing is, this is nothing in it, baby, is do research on it and figure out like the things that you can do to naturally help like any symptoms that a person would have. Because I had to take it into my own hands and like not always trust and believe what doctors say. Even though I love doctors, they're very knowledgeable. Everybody's body is different.
Absolutely.
So I had to go through that part.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Just because I know it's a lot of women really, some of the symptoms can be like quite painful, and a lot of times like this kind of like one size fits all approach doesn't really work. And so then you've got like these women who are going to all these different doctors and they're running all these different tests and trying to figure out exactly like what works. And like, it's really like an individual case by case thing. Like somebody who takes birth control to control it, that might not work for somebody else. So
exactly.
Thank you.
Some bodies, reject certain things. So you got to just find out what's good for you. And it's a lot of trial and error, but it works out at the end. I'm still, after having 2 children, I still am not regular. I still have, the hair, and I'm still like super hormonal at times, but it's not since I've had my children, it's not like a painful situation. Like,
okay.
So
I have one more question.
Sure.
So my last question is, if you could have a motherhood superpower, anything at all, what would be your superpower and why?
Oh my goodness. This is the best. First of all, can I just tell you, this has been the most fun interview in the universe.
Yeah.
I'm in love. I am so in love. My motherhood superpower. I would have, only one? Okay, one. Let me name that. What would I like better? That or, yep. Okay, here would be my superpower. I have the ability to snap my fingers and it's bedtime. And both of them go to sleep for 10 hours. I'm talking about 10 hours strong. I'm talking a smooth 8 to 6 or 10 to 8, something. Like, I need to be able to say, powers unite. And they're like, and it's still waking up in between. That's my group.
Like, you know what? Bedtime.
Right. You know what? First, I was going to say snap my fingers and my house will be clean, because the amount of toys that come with kids is unreal. Like, I don't ever remember having this much stuff. Like, I don't know if my mom spent every day cleaning up like I do, but I literally clean all day. So I was going to say snap my fingers and my house be clean, but I'd rather them just be asleep. I'll clean the house while they're sleeping. So.
I like that. That's amazing. That's awesome. Okay.
That's awesome.
Awesome.